How you doing, Rube?
I'm good, Dave. How are you?
I'm good. I got to watch some football this weekend. That was nice.
A lot of football.
Yeah, I on Sunday I did not I left my couch one time. I went to the store to buy a cheesesteak and I came home and sat right back down and didn't move.
Yeah, well, I have you beat because I didn't leave my couch. I just door dashed my lunch.
Oh,
I
there you go.
never left. I didn't know what to do between like 7:15 and 8:15. It's like no game. So, but then yesterday, kind of, you had kind of overlapping games. So it's a lot of fun. We don't get to sit and watch football all day very often. Maybe a couple times a year. So that was a lot of fun.
There was a point in that Browns Steelers game on Monday night. I was watching it and I was thinking to myself, am I even enjoying this? Is this good? Like, is this what I want to be spending my time on right now?
I was fascinated by that game. I mean, we'll talk about it later. I'm fascinated by Deshaun Watson and his decline and what they gave up for him and how tied they are to him and what they're going to do.
Yeah, a little tricky there.
Yeah. Jim Schwartz, his defense was fine other than that one big play, but they got some issues, the Browns do.
Yeah, I think I saw Nate Gary in coverage on that one. Not quite. All right, this is
Anthony Harris was. That's one thing about watching football. You see these former Eagles everywhere.
Mhm.
I mean, Anthony Harris was playing for the Steelers. Rasul Douglas had another interception. Nelly caught a touchdown. Matt Collins caught a touchdown. They didn't count it. Well,
I thought that should have counted.
yeah, apparently the rule, and I didn't know this, is that if your back's to the back of the end zone, it's not enough to just have your toes in bounds. You have
That
to.
seems insane to me.
It's insane. It's the worst rule ever.
Yeah.
Like if you have your toes, both toes down, then both your feet are in, right?
Apparently not. That was weird.
And if you do that going out of bounds, it's a catch. You get both toes down, tap both toes. It's a catch. Anyway.
They just don't want to see Mac thrive. That's all it is.
And Mac made a big play down the field a little later in that game.
He did. All right. Let's get back on the rails here.
No, let's talk about Matt Collins.
This is the Eagle Eye podcast presented by Nissan. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. We do a bunch of Eagles stuff to talk about. They obviously got to sit back and watch football this weekend. They're 2-0. They've done it in a fashion that hasn't been super convincing, but they're 2-0 nonetheless. We do have some injury stuff to talk about. They have a new punter. We'll kind of go over our concern with their offense so far, where they stand, and we'll give our early thoughts on the Buccaneers. But let's start with Avonte Maddox. That's the biggest news the Eagles have right now, and it's not good. Avonte Maddox tore his pec on Thursday night. He needs surgery, most likely out for the season. This is a big blow. I wish I could say it's more surprising. He's just really struggled to stay on the field.
Yeah, I mean, the first few years of his career, he would miss games here and there. His first 3 years, he missed 13 games. So, or I should say his first 4 years, he missed 14 games. But the last two, he's missed 8 last year, and looks like he'll miss 16. Well, we'll see, but I just can't imagine he's going to come back from that injury. You do the math on him, he's missed 37 games in not, since coming out in 18. Really good player when he's healthy, but I mean, he actually played. I thought he played really well Thursday night before he got hurt. But I don't know how long you can count on him being out there. I think they're going to – I mean, there's the short-term solution at the slot, which they have to deal with now, but there's also a long-term solution that they've got to figure out.
Yeah, I don't think you can rely on him anymore. And that's hard to say because he has been a really good player. You're right. He was playing well in that game. He forced the fumble early on. Even on the play he got hurt, he flew around the field and made a tackle. But you're at the point now where, the injuries kind of speak for themselves. He's going to have to prove that he can stay on the field. And I don't know if he can do that. And he's under contract through next season, but it's hard to imagine him playing on the deal the way it's currently structured. So he got an extension, and we'll talk about the short-term solution, or not really short-term, really for the rest of the season and what the Eagles will do. But he signed a 3-year extension in 2021. He was a part of that 2018 class, obviously. He has a big cap number next year, a base salary of nearly $7 million. Even if he's here next year, he can't play. He's not going to be on that contract. There's no way.
No, it's impossible. And, we've talked about this before. It's just his size and the way he plays. it's just going to be hard for him to stay on the field. And the older he gets, the harder it is. That's just the analytics say the older you are, the more likely you are to get hurt. And I mean, it took him 5 quarters this year, so 5.5 quarters. So, I mean, I hope he's here in some role, but yeah, he's certainly not. It's not going to be under that contract, and they've got a lot to figure out there. And look, he's a great guy and a great teammate. He's one of only a handful of guys who's been here since 18, but you can't count on him. And I hope he finds a way to stay healthy and has a long career, but it doesn't look good.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. You're right about the locker room stuff. He's a positive force in there. His teammates love him. He does play so tough. It's a shame because it's one of the reasons you love him as a player, but it's probably also one of the reasons he's been so injury prone is because he's 5'9", $180, and he throws his body around. It's just probably not sustainable. And he's super versatile too. That's what we love about him. We saw him in that game. He started out as safety. Like he was their safety in the base package, moved up as the nickel in the subs. And, he's a talented player, but man, you can't go in the next season with him as your nickel. I just don't think you can do it. That's a starting position in the NFL.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you look at the snap counts every week on Monday or on Friday, whenever it is. And I mean, he's always got like maybe 10 or 12 fewer snaps than Bradbury and Slay. Mm-hmm. He's playing 80%, 70, 80%, depending on how much 3 wides teams are playing. But he's a really valuable guy. And yeah, something they're going to have to figure out short-term and long-term.
Yeah, I looked ahead a little bit at his contract. The Eagles have some void years on that deal, so anything that would happen in terms of like a trade or a cut would probably have to be post-June 1st, even if it's designated a post-June 1st cut, because it would kind of hurt them if it's a regular release. Yeah,
and I mean, I was glad they gave him the contract when they did, but you always kind of had it in the back of your mind. It's a lot of money for a guy who can't stay on the field. Now, when they gave it to him, his injury issues weren't as pronounced.
Sure.
But you wondered about his ability moving forward to stay healthy. So.
Yeah, I mean, since he got and 2021 is the year where he actually almost played a full season.
Played 16 games.
Yeah, so the 2 years since then haven't gone to plan. Maybe he can take some kind of a pay cut like Derek Barnett did just to stick around, but he might just need to move on too. Like that's an important position, and it might be time to try to draft one. You can draft one in the a mid round, like a 3rd, 4th round pick, and he was a 4th round pick, and he was a really good pick. He worked out, but at this point,
And they have a lot of young corners who've shown some promise. People ask me about Ricks. I mean, we can talk about it now, but I mean, Ricks is really an outside corner. Job's an outside corner. So it's not like you can just stick a guy in the slot who's never practiced there or played there and doesn't really have the skill set that you need in there. And it's a really specific skill set.
I kind of think Ricks could play there, like more than say like Keely Ringo.
Yeah, but it's not something you can count on this year, certainly.
Yeah, it would take some time to cross train. So let's talk about the options the Eagles have now going forward, because Zach McPherson was supposed to be the backup nickel. They gave him those reps all summer until he got hurt in the preseason. He tore his Achilles, so he's out for the year. It was at that point that Mario Goodrich got bumped up to the second team. And look, he earned his roster spot, but he probably doesn't make the team if McPherson doesn't get that injury. But he makes the team. He plays special teams in week 2, and then he ends up on the field for 39 snaps. Is it just as simple as you play Mario Goodrich?
It could be. He might be their best option. And I rewatched chunks of the game, and he wasn't awful. And he certainly his first game he's ever played. I mean, he was around last year, but never got on the field. Didn't get on the field in the opener. So it's the first time he's ever played in the NFL. And considering that, and considering the challenge, who he was up against, I thought he was okay for a first game. It was a good start.
I thought he was fine when he wasn't covering Justin Jefferson, which is like
everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not going to fault the kid in his first NFL game for getting beat by Justin Jefferson.
absolutely. He played better than I initially thought. And I think that might be, they're big on let's not hurt two spots, and the way to do that is to have him in there. I don't think I might be the lesser of two evils. That might be the best option.
I think it makes the most sense. See what you have in Goodrich, and you're early enough in the season where you give him. He has an extended week here to get ready for the next game. If he can't play, then you figure out, well, do we move Bradbury? Do we go out and sign someone off the street? But you kept him out of training camp. You kept 7 cornerbacks out of training camp, and there's one injury. So you should be able to figure this out. I think Eli Ricks then becomes the backup nickel. So I think he'll start to be active on game days. I'd like to see Samari Goodrich. I don't know how he'll fare, but I wasn't discouraged by what I saw in 39 snaps against the Vikings.
Yeah, I was discouraged on Thursday night, but not when I rewatched. He was in the right place for the most part. He's not. I don't think he's the most physical guy in that spot.
He did force a fumble. It didn't count, but he forced a fumble.
Yeah, he did. But I mean, I guess look, there's not that many options. Bradbury. I was initially kind of high on the thought of Bradbury in the slot. We know they cross-train him there a lot. I mean, he played a lot of snaps in training camp inside. Mm-hmm. And there were days where, he was the slot, but he's too valuable as an outside corner. I just don't think you can do that. I'd rather have, and again, if he moves inside, presumably Job would be the starter outside. They did sign a guy to the practice squad who was a first-round pick many years ago, 2016. But
they didn't sign him yet.
They signed him to the practice squad.
Oh, they did?
Oh, they worked him out. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
They did not sign him. And he's bounced around. I don't think he's really an option. Played for Washington in 21 and half of 22, or a couple games in 22. Then went to Pittsburgh, where he was Terrell Edmonds' teammate, but he never played for the Steelers. He got hurt. He's bound. He wasn't in the camp. He's had a couple tryouts. He tried out with the Eagles today. But in any case, I don't want Bradbury inside full time. I think there might be spots, there might be situations, there might be matchups where it makes sense. Job had a tough time, but again, that was his first.
I actually thought Job was okay. He had the one bad play.
Yeah, he had a couple. Bad plays, but I just think you're probably stronger with Slay, Bradbury outside, and Goodrich inside than Slay and Job, or Goodrich outside and Bradbury inside.
Yeah. Now that doesn't mean that there won't be occasions where they'll use Bradbury inside. Sure. And it hasn't changed from training camp when we thought, okay, if you're playing a really good tight end that lines up in the slot, I told you before that the guy that came to mind initially was Darren Waller. Then I think Bradbury makes some sense inside. Maybe even this week, if Mike Evans takes some snaps inside, I don't think it'd be a bad idea with that body type to put Bradbury on him. But as an every down thing, and it would also it would be a lot on Bradbury because he'd probably start the game outside in the base package or whenever they're in base, which isn't a whole lot, but he'd probably be outside in those snaps and then have to slide inside, which he could do it. He's a veteran. He's 30 years old. He's been around, but it does put a lot on his plate.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Here's a question. Could Bradbury travel with Evans, whether Evans is inside or outside?
Potentially.
Thought?
From when you're looking at the Bucs, their top 2 receivers are Evans and Godwin, and those are probably the better matchups just from a body standpoint.
Yeah, I would think so.
Evans is bigger, Godwin's speedier. You probably want Slay on Godwin.
That's what I'm thinking.
But then, they they move those guys around so much, you might get tied up like a pretzel if you try to do that all game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's no ideal situation. There's no ideal answer. There's no perfect answer. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle it. I think it'll be a combination, but I think it'll be mainly Goodrich.
What do you think about the big nickel, which is something Desai has done? 3 safeties on the field, basically just a safety out there instead of a nickel corner. The Eagles have some options. Justin Evans, even though he hasn't looked great doing it.
Played better Thursday.
Yeah, he would be like the obvious one, but Sidney Brown at some point, maybe? I kind of like that idea.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
Just get your 5 best defensive backs on the field.
Do they have 5?
I don't know, but it would be a way to play Sidney Brown, and I'm trying to find ways to play Sidney Brown.
Yeah, I mean they do have that option. I just don't know how much you want to do that, but it's out there. I mean, they're going to do it to some extent, I would think, but I don't know. My biggest concern is Evans, this week, and you just try to figure out the best way to. I mean, I think he's one of the most underrated, not just receivers, but players in the NFL. He's a whole
thing. He trips out a bet every year and gets 1,000 yards.
Yeah, and he had a huge game Sunday. So, yeah, that's my first priority is dealing with him, and then you figure the rest of it out.
Yeah. Any interest in signing an outside guy? I haven't done a ton of work on the players who might be available, but
as opposed to an inside guy.
No,
so
I mean
outside guy,
a street free agent, I should say.
Yeah, I don't know what you're going to find at this point. A guy who's on the street week 3, you're not getting. You're not. I mean, look, they have I really like their pro scouting staff, but I don't know what you're going to find at this point. That's why a guy like. I don't even remember his name. Who's the guy who had a tryout today?
William Jackson.
Or William Jackson III. I mean, that's the kind of guy you're going to get. And, I mean, look, Pro Football Focus isn't the end-all, be-all, but you look at his career and his grades have just, plummeted. And he's 30. I don't know what you're going to find out there.
Yeah, he'd probably have to go with a veteran and just hope they have some tread left. But I think that's maybe – a backup, see what you have in Goodrich, really give him an opportunity to earn that job. I think he deserves that. He had a good summer. Honestly, we haven't talked about this a ton. McPherson didn't look great. I don't want to kick a guy while he's down. He's injured. He was going to make the team because he's a really good special teamer. I thought he had some definite ups and downs. There was a learning curve as he was taking over the backup nickel job. And to be fair, Goodrich was on the third team more, so he wasn't facing the same level of competition. But I thought Goodrich was steadier throughout training camp.
I think that's fair. I didn't think Zach had a particularly strong camp. I think we talked about that. He seemed like the best option at the time to back up Avonte.
And Goodrich did pass Josiah Scott in the pecking order. Josiah Scott was the backup nickel last year, and he was on the roster this summer. And Goodrich passed him. That has to count for something.
Don't laugh at me, but is Josiah on a roster?
I believe he's on a practice squad. Steelers, perhaps?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
No.
Yeah.
No. You tried that.
Yeah, I hear you. But, again, there's no simple answer. So, I mean, that's the caliber of player that you're going to get on the street at this point.
Yeah. The only simple answer is next guy up is Mario Goodrich, and we'll see what he has.
I think that's what we're going to see, at least for Monday to start off.
Okay. All right. You want to move on? Anything else on the nickel?
No.
Okay. Let's move on. The Eagles have a new punter. They found their man. We'll say that joke for the millionth time.
Yeah.
Not much of a surprise here.
No, and we said the only surprise is that they didn't give Sipas 3 weeks to maximize their practice squad elevations.
Yeah, I think the reasoning for this made sense from Nick Sirianni. You have a long week here to get the new punter in and get him used to the operation and get Jake Elliott comfortable with him, which isn't a major deal, but it's something you do want to make sure that goes smoothly. I think it's a modest upgrade. I don't think it's like they didn't go from Siposs to Shane Leckler here. It's a modest upgrade.
Yeah, I compared their career stats, and they're pretty close, but that's a little deceiving because his name is Braden Mann, played at Texas A&M. His rookie year with the Jets in 20 was really bad. He was really bad. And his numbers got better each year. So last year he averaged 46.9, and his net was almost 41. So those numbers are okay. Siposs has a higher career inside the 20 percentage, but Mann was at 23% as a rookie, and he's been in the 34, 35 range the last 2 years, which is better than Siposs. So
I think I hate the inside the 20 stat.
Yeah, I was thinking about what you said. I don't know if that was on the last podcast or we were just walking to practice or something, but it seems to me that punting needs a really improved metric to gauge punters that would take into account what they're trying to do on the punt, trying to, kick it out of bounds, trying to just kick it as far as possible, like from your own 30, trying to land it at the 5, just trying to get inside the 20. Because a punt from midfield to the 19 counts as inside the 20.
And Siposs had one like that.
Yeah.
In the last game. I think it got down to like the 14.
Yeah.
Well, that punt kind of stunk.
I mean, 14 is better than 19, but yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I agree. I think there should be, maybe you could develop a metric to really more accurately measure punters' performance, because I'm surprised nobody's done that.
Yeah. I mean, we have the data, even if it's just a inside the 10 metric would be better.
Or, I mean, there should be like a point system for each yard deeper toward the 1 that you get. And
although sometimes you'll have a flub, like the gunner will trip over themselves into the end zone, becomes a touchback where you had a great punt. So it's anything you do is going to be imperfect. Yeah,
but I think there's a way to do it to do it better than it is now. And I was thinking about that, but actually watching football, that's all I thought about was how can we more accurately measure punters? But look, Siposs I thought he was pretty good in the opener. Like, all right, if he keeps up like that, they probably won't make it.
Another stat that we should have?
What's that?
That it's out there, but it's not used as much, like sack yards lost per sack.
Oh, yeah.
It's like that the data is out there, but like no one ever references it because there's such you watch some quarterbacks take these major sacks and they're for instance 12-yard sacks, and that's a lot different than a 2-yard sack.
Jalen's number is actually low this year. His average sack is 5.5 yards.
Yeah, it's because sometimes he starts to take off and he gets caught before he reaches the line of scrimmage.
Right.
Which sounds
if the play starts out as a pass play, then that's a sack. If he's running, if it's a called run, then it's not a sack, even if you lose yardage. But in any case, I remember Randall Randall thought of himself as a punter, and he hated the fact that you didn't get the yards from where you punt to the line of scrimmage. He's like, if I punt a ball, like a 60-yard punt, I'm punting the ball 75 yards. It's like, it's so unfair. And he wasn't even a punter. But yeah, that did bother him. Anyway.
Yeah, that is kind of weird because kickers get those yards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it's because the play, and on a kicking play, the play starts, I mean, the line of scrimmage is where you snap it, but the ball is downed. So there's a clear spot. I don't know, maybe on a punt. I mean, it's just that he has possession of the ball and it's not, I don't know. Anyway, we're a little off the rails. That seems to happen frequently. But yeah, I thought Siposs was bad on Thursday night. And I thought he'd give him 3 weeks. Now, this guy's on the practice squad too. They could theoretically just keep signing punters.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. I want to. We won't get a straight answer from anyone on this, but I wonder if that's in their thought process.
Yeah.
Like, how would it be damaging to just keep cycling through these mediocre punters. If you don't look, if Braden Mann is really good and you think, well, we're not going to get any better than this guy, yeah, then by all means uses up his elevations and then sign him to the active roster. I wonder, like, if the roster flexibility outweighs the stability of having a regular punter.
I would say no. I mean, you're going to go through 6 punters to get through the season. And I think the more you get into the deeper part of the season, the better your odds that you're going to have a punter really screw up.
But it could be like a year-long tryout, and then when you get to the playoffs, you sign the best guy that you had during the year.
Yeah, I'd be scared to have because now, week 17, say it's a huge game, you got to win it to get the number 1 seed, and now you got your 6th best punter out there. Although Sipos has another elevation, so he's got one in his back pocket. And I know a lot of people asked if they cut him and he comes back, does he get 3 more elevations? No, you get 3 total elevations.
Sure, the Eagles looked into that.
Although if he goes to the Jaguars, he's got 3 elevations on their roster. Comes back, he doesn't. Well, he has 1. So anyway, punter elevations, man, we're really. It is
fascinating, though. The elevations have really kind of changed roster construction.
Sure, yeah.
And the Eagles are taking advantage of it more than anyone else, which isn't surprising.
Once again, Howie's on the riding the wave. He's really innovative when it comes to this stuff and taking.
Doesn't mean it'll always work, but they're trying it.
No, but he's taking full advantage of the opportunity to have the best chance to make it work. Because if you had to sign Braden Mann to the 53. Now you're looking around like, who can we cut here? We're heavy a cornerback. We're heavy on an edge.
Yeah, I mean, well, they will have presumably Avonte's spot.
True.
They'll have Avonte's spot. He's going to go to IR. So, and like, not that you're hoping for an injury, but realistically there are going to be injuries that pop up. You're going to have guys go to IR, and it's going to give you ways to call up other players.
No doubt. But I'm looking forward to seeing, and like Nick kind of played it down, but you got the best long distance kicker in the league, as far as I'm concerned, one of the top 5 kickers in the league. He's got a new holder, so that's going to be something to watch too.
Yeah, we've mentioned it before. I know the Eagles were impressed by how Elliott kicked with both holders in the preseason because they had Zettner here for a while, and he was fine. I mean, he missed the 1 kick Zettner held on, but it wasn't a hold problem. He just missed it. Zettner, by the way, is the worst punter in the league.
Who's that?
Zettner.
He's got a net under 37, right?
Yeah, 37.6 net right now. He's taking over. He's been the punter in Houston while Cam Johnston gets healthy, and it hasn't gone well. So at least he didn't go to Houston and all of a sudden was great. That would have made the Eagles feel pretty bad about it.
That's what Cam Johnston did, though.
Well, Cam Johnston also got a 3-year, $10 million contract, I think.
And he was really, really good here. Is he the best punter in Eagles history? He wasn't here that long. I promised to rank the top 10 punters, didn't I?
I don't know.
It's tough because
Donnie Jones was pretty darn good.
Donnie Jones was really solid. Matt McBride was only here a year, but he was really good. But it's hard to compare because, back in the day, just the game was so different.
Mm-hmm.
Like Sean Landeta was a really good punter, but his numbers, don't stack up to guys punting today. So anyway, I don't want to devote the whole podcast to punting, but it's going to be interesting to see how this guy does.
It's one of the newsier things about this team, and we'll get into the offense after the break.
Rex Burns still out there, by the way.
No, he retired. You'd have to get him out of retirement.
Well, I think he would do that.
After what I saw last year, I don't think he would. You got anything else on the punter?
No.
All right. Well, let's take a break. And then on the other side, we can get into some of the offensive struggles and whether or not we're concerned about them.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone in a great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Rube, we had a chance to talk to Nick Sirianni on Monday. I asked him about his concern level about the offense and the passing offense specifically and what they need to do to fix it. He said it's not time to hit the panic button, but let me ask you, any reason to panic about the Eagles' passing woes so far?
I don't think so. I really don't. I think it's going to come. They have good players across the board. I don't think there's one person to blame. They have a new offensive coordinator. I think the way the season has started, you start out with Brian Johnson in his first game as an OC versus the greatest defensive coach in history, who's had 5 months to prepare for you, and then a short week. So I think if things don't get better in the next 2 weeks, then I'll be really concerned. I think we've seen enough. And look, they had, 430 yards because they ran the ball so well. And that's offense. That's a big part of offense. If teams are giving them that, they're going to take it. And I do think that there's a lot that's gone into the passing offense. I looked this up. This is crazy. The Eagles have given up the fourth most 10-yard pass plays, and they have the third fewest 10-yard pass plays. That was before last night's games, so they might be down to the fewest. But I'm concerned, but I think that they still have a top 3 1-2 punch at receiver. They still have the MVP runner-up at quarterback, and he's healthy. I think the things that he's not doing well, he'll start doing better because we've seen it. And I've seen enough flashes. Like, even you look at Thursday night, and I know the numbers didn't end up super, but you look at the 48-yarder down the right sideline. That could have easily been. And AJ did bobble it. Could have gone either way. He had another one to AJ for 25 yards. That would have been a touchdown, and he got arm barred, and it wasn't called.
Yeah, 2 of those.
Yeah. So, you look at he hit big plays to Devontae. I've seen enough good things. I was writing about that pass he made on that 3rd and 5 just before the long Swift run in the fourth quarter. So they had a 3rd and 5 right around midfield. And the Vikings had all the momentum in the world. They just scored 2 touchdowns. I thought that was a huge play. I thought that was one of the biggest plays in the game. And he threw a bullet to AJ in double coverage, and he just threw it through a tight window. And that's the kind of play that you're used to seeing. Now, you're used to seeing it more, but I feel like I've seen it enough to feel like it's going to be there more as we get on, as Jalen gets more comfortable with Brian, as Brian gets more comfortable calling the plays. I could be wrong, but my concern level is fairly low.
Yeah, I kind of share a lot of the same sentiment. And I think, as much as I sometimes hate when coaches say, well, the other team gets paid too, I hate that. I feel like it's a cop-out most of the times. But in this case, I thought the Patriots and the Vikings had a pretty, even if it wasn't good, it was a unique game plan that threw a wrench into it. The Vikings had just a bizarre game plan. They were either like blitzing everyone or they were dropping into coverage with everyone. And eventually they had so many light boxes that the Eagles started running the football, and they ran it really effectively. And I think, like, when you look at the passing offense struggles, I think there are like multiple factors involved in this, and it's tough to divvy up the blame pie. But with Johnson, with Brian Johnson, I think Nick Sirianni looks at it like he's adjusted in both of these games. In week 1, it was the adjustment was pretty simple. It was get AJ Brown the ball, and they started doing that. And then week 2, it was, hey, they're giving you inside zone, take it, and he did, and they ran down their throats. So I think that there's been a lot of grumbling about Brian Johnson and his struggles, but I actually think the Eagles look at it differently, and they see the adjustments that he's made. I think there's a moderate level of concern with Jalen, though, because I know the defenses have tried to do things to confuse him, and it's worked, but I haven't seen him be very decisive. I haven't seen him look comfortable in the pocket, which is a big part of his game. He's always this cool customer, decisive, makes the right calls, and then he's just looked so frenetic in the pocket. He's looked so uncomfortable. That's slightly concerning to me. I don't know. Let me ask you. So, for the most part, he's been pretty accurate. Oh, really accurate.
Yeah, 71%.
There haven't been many bad throws. I mean, the one he stared down on the interception was a bad throw. But for the most part, like, the throws have been okay. It's been the pocket management and the decision making. If I had to ask you where you'd rather him struggle, what would you pick there?
I'd rather he's not so accurate.
Okay.
And yeah. And I mean, because really for this offense to work, I mean, he's got to drive the ball down the field. And he hasn't used the mid range. Like, there's the 2 long passes to Avonte. Everything else, I think they have one other
10 yards. Yeah.
I think there's one other completion in 2 games longer than 15 yards. It was a 23-yarder to AJ during that stretch you just talked about. So this offense isn't going to work. It almost seems like he's being too careful sometimes. Maybe he, trying not to make a mistake instead of just cutting it loose. I get that sense. Sometimes I think he's thinking too much. I don't disagree with what you said about his pocket. We called it court awareness on the last pod. He's running into traffic. He's running into sacks.
Yeah.
He looks slow to me. And I think that's not a reflection of his fitness or his speed. I think it's a reflection of him being indecisive, tentative. And I think when you're like that, your full skill set doesn't show. So I think he's just got to get back to making the main thing the main thing. No, he's just got to get back to being aggressive and going through his progressions quicker. It's I think that's why people kind of using that regression word and talking about Carson and stuff, because that was a problem with him in 21 at times, especially early. He was tentative and he wasn't seeing the whole field. But we've seen over. I mean, first of all, they're 19-1 in the last 20 games that he started. So you keep it all in perspective. He's doing the things. He's doing things to help the team win for the most part. And I think he can work through this because I've seen him over long periods of time play at a consistently high level. I think it's hard. We think of him as being like Superman, but I mean, the expectations on him, I mean, he just went to the Super Bowl, MVP runner-up. Everyone's calling him the MVP this year. I think it's a lot. And I mean, he's doing all these commercials and he's doing all this stuff. And it's just a lot on his plate. And I think he's got to figure that whole balance out.
I thought it was an interesting exchange with Nick Sirianni on his Monday presser. You asked him about the sacks that Jalen's taken. And he brought up a good point that it's just really tough sometimes to assign blame. Even when we're watching and Jalen takes a sack, he brought up the point that, like, sometimes it's because a receiver he brought up one sack in particular on the plus 35 where the receiver coming across the field didn't hit it quick enough and it muddied the picture for Jalen, and then he ends up taking a sack, which is a fair point. Like, we don't always know exactly why something happened, but then, like, my counter to that would be, well, the next play, he took a bigger sack that you obviously can't take to take you out of field goal range. So I think it's a little bit of everything. But I'm ultimately with you. I think he's too talented. I think the offensive line is too good. I think the skill position players are too good for this offense to not eventually figure it out.
Yeah, I'm with you. And everything you say, I agree with. And we've seen it. But we've also seen him do some pretty good things. I mean, they scored 34 points. Obviously, a lot of it was the running game. But, I mean, if they could put up 34 every week, they're going to win most of their games. Yeah. And I think knowing that they have that running game. What's that?
A little help from the defense there.
A little bit. I think knowing that they have that running game and in their back pocket and putting it on film, putting it on tape, teams know that if we show them a light box, they're gonna be disciplined enough to take it to run it. I think that's going to help them.
Yeah, of course, because if teams start to devote more resources, this is pretty basic, obviously, but if teams start to devote more resources to stopping the run, it's going to give Jalen an opportunity to throw the ball downfield more, which at times, like we've seen the
Use the
Eagles
run to set up the pass. I read that somewhere.
Is that what teams do sometimes?
I've heard that. Yeah, I've never really seen it.
It's kind of, with the Eagles, a lot of the times we have seen them use the pass to set up the run, but the others are a pretty tried and true method. And with this offensive line, it's legitimate. They can do it that way.
Yeah. And I think another factor is blitz pickup has been really bad. Other than Gainwell, I thought Gainwell's, he's pretty good at it. Boston's good at it, but he hasn't played that many snaps. But Penny, we saw him, have a really bad rep, and Swift wasn't really good at it either. So,
well, that's kind of his rep from Detroit, was that he wasn't very good at it.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason we're still going to see an awful lot of Kenny G when he comes back.
No question about it.
Real quick before we move on to early thoughts on the Bucs and week 2 around the NFL, anything else from Nick Sirianni's presser that stood out? I like that he called the A.J. Brown thing a 2 out of 10 on the receiver frustration scale.
Yeah, no question. We've seen a lot worse, certainly, around here. Wide receivers, superstar wide receivers are a different breed. And, we've seen, some of the stuff that trade demands and holding out. And if I don't get the ball, I'm going to do this. And, guys screaming at their coaches. This was mild compared to some of the stuff we've seen. So, we know AJ's emotional. It's something to keep an eye on because it's happened multiple times. And I think he's so competitive. He just wants to win. And he feels like the best way for this team to win is if the ball's in his hands. And I can't really disagree.
I'm kind of with AJ on that one.
Yeah. So I get it. But I think he's just got to just tone it down a little, save it for locker room after the game. Whatever.
It was so funny though, because right after he did it, they threw back-to-back balls to him, and one of them should have ended up being a touchdown.
Right. Yeah. So I'm not all that concerned, and I think it's a real strength of Nick to navigate through this kind of thing.
Yeah, but it does feel like it is something you have to be cognizant of. Like If you're the offensive coaches, you're Brian Johnson, you're Jalen Hurts. Not that target share has to dictate everything you do, but you have to be aware of it, and it does have to factor into what you're doing on a week-to-week basis because you don't want it to get so lopsided.
Yeah, but he's also – it puts Jalen in a tough position because if Devontae's open on 10 straight plays, he's got to throw to Devontae 10 straight times. And he shouldn't go out there like, I got to find AJ. It's really not fair to him.
Yeah, but my point was there are play calls – designed with one guy in mind, and
no
maybe
question.
dial one of them up every once in a while.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. The only other thing I had from the Thursday's game that then we can put it to bed, one of my least favorite things to do is to give a grade to the tight ends immediately, and I gave them a lower grade than I should have based on the passing numbers. Rewatching it, those two guys were monsters in the run game.
Yeah.
They really were, and that's something that's a little tough to see live. But Dallas Goedert was just blocking his butt off all game. Jack Stoll too. They had a big hand in those 259 rushing yards.
Yeah, there's no question. And Goddard, unlike AJ, I think is tough. Look, he wants the ball and he loves catching the ball, but I don't think there's anyone who just loves to win more than him. And if he doesn't get
different roles too. The
absolutely
blocking versus a tight end blocking is a lot different.
Well, he's a guy who, we kind of thought Pro Bowl this year, 1,000 yards this year. He's got 22 yards after 2 games, and maybe he'll still get 1,000. But, he's just such a team guy, and he loves to block. He just does. He's really, really good at it.
Yeah. All right. Want to move on a little bit?
Let's move on a little bit.
Buccaneers 2-0. Are they for real or are they a paper tiger?
Ask me around midnight Monday. I just can't imagine Baker Mayfield's. I mean, he's playing over his head. They beat the Vikings out there, which is a good win, and they beat the Bears Sunday. So they haven't played.
The Bears just might really stink.
Yeah. Who was that guy who was going on TV? I was talking to Shady about it when he was at training camp, saying how Justin Fields is better than Jalen.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Who was that guy?
Maybe physical tools, but, I mean.
Yeah, I guess Jalen's got better. But anyway, I like the way they're playing. I thought they'd be good defensively coming in. Todd Bowles is a good defensive coach. Our old friend Todd Bowles, former Eagles defensive coordinator.
Was he our friend?
Yeah, he's our friend.
Okay.
I like Todd. Temple guy, North Jersey, right?
That I don't know.
Elizabeth or Plainfield. One of those. Which one did Malcolm go to? Yeah, he went to Elizabeth High School. The Dunn Center, where we covered a lot of state championship.
Wasn't Malcolm
Piscataway? I think it was Piscataway.
Piscataway, okay.
Was it Piscataway? See, now I got to look this up. There are all those Group 4 schools in North Jersey. North 1. He went to Piscataway. Yeah.
Who's that? Todd Bowles?
No, Todd went to Elizabeth. Malcolm went to Piscataway.
Okay.
Like I said.
Who's the East Orange?
East Orange. I don't know. I'll look that up and I'll have that for you on the next podcast.
Thank you.
Vinny Curry went to Highland Park.
Okay. I saw Vinny before the game on Thursday. It was good
to see Vinny.
Yeah. One of our favorites.
Good guy.
We're not supposed to have favorites. Vinny's one of our favorites.
Had 9 sacks one year. Made himself some money.
He did. Good for him.
But anyway, I think the big surprise with them is how well Baker's playing. Completing almost 70% of his passes, 3 touchdowns, no picks. They're protecting him. He's only been sacked once. It was a 4-yard sack. He's got a passer rating over 100. I don't think he's ever had one over 80. So, he's throwing to Mike Evans, who's really, really good. And Godwin, Godwin's decent. And that's their offense. I mean, they don't run the ball a whole lot. They got that what's his name, Rashad White. But he's, they're gonna throw to those 2 guys. And that's their offense. And Evans is as good as anybody. I mean, you're going from, Justin Jefferson to Mike Evans. Look, Jefferson's better, but they're close. Evans is just so consistent and has been since. Does he have the record for most 1,000-yard seasons to begin a career? I don't
know, but maybe. Yeah, he's been super consistent.
Yeah, so that's the challenge, and they're good defensively, and it's going to be down there on a Monday night, and it's going to be loud. I thought they were kind of go by the wayside when Brady retired and when Arians left, but 2-0.
I kind of like that they're going for it this year because that division's so wide open. Might as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think it's an easy game. Especially, and we'll see who the Eagles get back. If they get everyone back, I really like. And obviously not N'Kobe and Avonte, but all the guys who are out for the game Thursday. If they get them all back, I like their chances. But
yeah, I do too. I think they're 6.5-point favorites in this game. Yeah,
I've seen some crazy things happen in Tampa. Remember that 14-13 game in 91? They were up 13-0 with 5 minutes left. I'm asking if you remember it.
I do not.
They were up 13-0 with 5 minutes, with like 4.5 minutes left, and they lost. Yeah.
What happened?
They gave up 2 touchdowns in the last 4.5 minutes. They lost 14-13. There was a turnover. There was an interception. I don't remember, or maybe it was a 3-and-out. I think Brad Gable started that game. Did not go real well.
All right. We'll get into the matchup a little bit later in the week on Thursday's pod, but we got to watch some football on Sunday. Anything really stand out to you?
Well, I think the first thing is that, Dallas is really, really good. And I don't know the caliber of opponents that they played, but they cover everything. They do everything pretty well.
They fly around on defense.
They really do.
Micah Parsons is pretty good.
He's on another level. He's a Hall of Fame talent. and he has some help too. So just the division. I mean, the division's 7-1. I didn't expect Washington to be 2-0, but
how was that Giants game? Did you watch Giants?
I didn't.
Man, that was crazy. Jonathan Gannon. What happened there, buddy?
Well, I think you got word from upstairs saying, we're trying to tank here. So, see what you can do to get us an L. But I don't think the Giants in Washington are in the same class as the Eagles and Cowboys, but you keep stringing together wins and you get confident, and coming back from 20 points down gets you confident. And I mean, it's the same as last year. I mean, to be 7-1 as a division, I mean, it's a good division. And
3 playoff teams a year ago. Not crazy to think it could happen again.
I don't think of the Giants as a playoff team, but they were, and won a game. So that really stood out to me. It's from last night, but I mean, Deshaun Watson. I mean, what are the Browns going to do? He can't play.
Yeah, I don't know, and they lost their best player.
Oh, that was awful, Chubb. Yeah,
kudos to ESPN for not showing it. I don't want to see it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
That was. Yeah. And from all accounts, I've never met him or talked to him, but I mean, apparently he's like the best. People are tweeting out like he's the best guy they've ever covered. What a great guy he is. So hopefully, you just hope he's back next year, because I mean, incredible talent. Just
so good.
So good. I mean, I think he's got like the 3rd highest rushing average in history behind Rashad Penny and Jamal Charles. I mean, isn't that crazy? And Marion Motley.
Yeah, and based on Rashad Penny's workload, he's not going to lose his position.
Well, 3 for 9, he might have fallen below Marion Motley.
Maybe.
I'll have to check that out.
I was really excited for that Chiefs-Jaguars game. It was okay.
Yeah. They know each other so well.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and like they were talking about the connections and how, they were in Green Bay together, and then Doug coached here. They didn't mention he was Andy's first opening day quarterback in '99. Like, he played for him. So, but I still think Jacksonville. One interesting thing also is that, you look at some of the top quarterbacks in the league, Mahomes. He's thrown some touchdowns, but I mean, they've only put up 36 points in 2 games.
That offense is not the same.
No, it's not the same. And they even had Kelsey back. He's still not healthy, but they've lost a lot of people. I mean, Burrow hasn't been. You look at some of that's why the Jalen thing, like Jalen hasn't been himself, but they're still 2-0, and he hasn't been terrible.
Better than being 0-2 Joe Burrow right now.
Yeah, I mean, he looks bad. I mean, Josh Allen played great Sunday, but he threw 3 picks in the opener against the Jets. So, like, a lot of the best quarterback play has been from some younger guys and unexpected guys. So, I don't know if we're seeing a change in the guard or anything, but there's some good young talented quarterbacks. I mean, watching Tua is something. He's really good.
Yeah, he's very good. Still seeing lefty quarterbacks throws me off, but
hey, we saw Michael Vick at the game Thursday night, so
we did. Yeah,
it was great to see him. Had a nice, brief but nice chat with him. Anything stick out to you from the weekend?
Congrats to the Fighting Shane Steichens out there in Indy getting their first win in a battle of the young quarterbacks. I thought Richardson looked pretty good until he suffered that concussion.
Well, Minshew's a young quarterback. I mean, he's like 25. You forget. I mean, he's a young guy. He played really well.
He did. I like Richardson, though. I think they might have something.
Yeah, I do too. And he's got the perfect coach. He's such a nice kid. Did you talk to him at all when they were out here? I didn't, no. We were waiting to see Shane and say hi to him. And Richardson was walking over from the far field, like the one closest to CVS, over to stretch. And he just stopped and talked for 15 seconds and just pleasantries. But he was such a nice kid, and God, he's huge. That was my scouting report after seeing him. He's a big dude. Yeah, he's like Randall. He really. I don't keep talking about Randall in the old days, but your default shoot's like 1991. It is. Well, Randall missed 91 because he was hurt in the Bryce Pop game, Lambeau Field opening day. But yeah, it's fun to see some young quarterbacks really really shining. I like that. I think the league needs that because, so many of those guys retired. Matt Ryan and, Drew Brees and Peyton. Aaron Rodgers was going to retire until he went into a dark room. Yeah. I don't know what he'll do now. But a lot of that whole kind of generation of quarterbacks retired, and it's nice to see some really talented young guys. Yeah, I think the kid in Washington might be okay.
He's got some moxie.
He does.
Sam Howell. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if the top end talent is there, but I kind of like him too.
Yeah, we'll see him in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. All right. Are we good here?
I think we're good. And Eagles are 1 day behind because they played Monday, so they don't practice until Thursday this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so whenever this happens, the schedule just gets pushed back 1 day. I do like that the Eagles play at 7:15 on Monday night. That's nice.
Yeah, especially if you have like a 5:30 flight.
I do, because I'm an idiot, and I do this on every road trip, and then I complain about it to you and everyone else.
Nicest airport in the U.S., though, Tampa.
It is a nice airport. I'm excited to be down there. I like that whole area.
It is nice.
All right. If you enjoyed the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, click the like button, subscribe there as well. We love our viewers and listeners equally. All right. We're back with you later in the week. For Rube, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.